What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Issues of Faith.
Welcome to Issues of Faith. Glad you're with us. We're talking today about ministering in the Hispanic community, really all communities. But we are very happy to have with us in person our guest. This is the first time we've had a guest in person since the start of the pandemic. So thank you, Reverend Carlos Uroza.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
For being here. You are pastor of the Woodbine United Methodist Church.
Yes.
Graduate of Vanderbilt Divinity School.
Yes.
You have a unique story that I want to get into.
Yeah.
But I'm asking everyone that comes on the show, usually it's via Zoom, just about your experience during the course of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So Woodbine United Methodist Church, tell us a little bit about the church, how big is it, and then I'm going to ask how it was impacted by COVID.
Yeah. Well, Woodbine United Methodist Church is a historical church right in the heart of the Woodbine Flat Rock neighborhood. I mean, it used to carry that name for a long time as well. But this community has been a predominantly Anglo-American congregation that has faithfully served in this community. Right now, our congregation, we might be under 100 members, but we are serving two different communities that now are coming into one. And so we have a Hispanic congregation, a Hispanic Latino community, and we have an Anglo-American community that have been worshiping and now have been combined into one. And so we're exploring a lot about what does that look like.
That fascinated me. You have there was a time you had a Spanish-speaking service.
Yes.
And an English-speaking service.
Yeah.
And now?
Well, we still do, but now we are opening, with the gift of technology, we are moving into offering even some of the cross-language in each of their services. Currently, we have an English service at 9:45, and then the Spanish service at 11 o'clock. But throughout this season, this past 3 years, we've been doing a lot of work on how do we integrate and be able to maybe do a little more things together. Sometimes we have a bilingual worship or trying to spend some time in fellowship and mission together. And so we're learning how to behave and how to embrace each other as one community of faith.
What impact has COVID had on the church?
Well, I feel like we all have gone through a very difficult season in trying to navigate in the unknown, and there's nothing as difficult as having our doors open for anything, not only just for worship, but just to service in the community, and all this only having to shut down or to close. And that was a very a struggle, but I think maybe it's just my way of being. I saw that in the midst of the struggle, there was an opportunity, and like many churches trying to navigate the use of technology to reach out. And for us, I feel like we've been blessed that before the pandemic, we were just started to gear of how do we serve and how do we bring our message and connect with those that maybe are not able to come to the church. I remember in the beginning when they appointed me also to serve in the English church, English-speaking church, I realized that we have a long list of shut-ins that for medical issues or for being in retirement homes that they can no longer attend. And so I asked the question, what are we doing for them that had been very faithful and loyal to the ministry of this church? What do we do to reach out to them? And so we decided to maybe start having communications with them and even kind of teaching some how to use this technology, how to put a streaming device in their own and kind of connecting. And it was a moment when we realized like how we have failed sometimes to reach out the people that are really needing to have that connection. And we might not be in person, but for some of our faithful members that were so involved in ministry, just to be able even to see the sanctuary and the singing and had been very impactful. And so that was, I'm never gonna say that it's been a blessing to have COVID, but it's just maybe the opportunities, trying to be resilient to push the boundaries, and it has allowed us to to be okay with change, and to maybe be more flexible on the things that we can do. We didn't have to deal with a lot of committee works or things like that. We just had to this is what we have to do. And I feel like that has been an impact, a positive impact, and hopefully we are continuing to carry that.
Fascinating. It's allowed you to be okay with change.
Yes.
And churches are famous for committees, so maybe you didn't have as many of those. You had to work through.
Did have to do a lot of ad hoc work, and that's okay too.
All right, I'm fascinated by your story. I mean, there's this large article, and it talks about your experiences as a Mexican immigrant and how that impacts your ministry.
Yes.
So let me start with that.
Yeah.
You're a Methodist.
Yeah.
Not Catholic.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But just walk us through your experience as a Mexican immigrant and how it's impacting your ministry.
Yeah. So I grew up I was born in Mexico City, and there's probably being in that large environment, we have more accessibility to other organized religion, other institutions beyond Catholic Church. But my family in the rural part of Mexico, they grew up being Methodist, and I cannot necessarily pinpoint exactly how that happened, but I felt like, even for me growing in this, I felt like a minority in my own country. But it also highlighted a lot of the connections that existed between our brothers and sisters from the other countries, and not only here in the United States, but around the world. Like, we felt like we belonged to something that we're not silo as a one group in one part of Mexico. And so that opened a lot of connection with people here, specifically my own journey here in Nashville, Tennessee, with the wonderful people of Woodbine United Methodist Church who were sent mission trips to help to help our communities thrive in ministry. And so that is one of the things that it was an absolute blessing to connect with people that truly had a heart to share what we say, the love of God.
Because is that how you kind of got into it? There were mission trips from churches here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And you would meet them and help them get around?
Well, my first experience was that the people of Woodbine United Methodist Church sent a mission trip to my church. And to me, that was just this beautiful moment when my mom and I had to open our doors for some of our students to come and stay in our house. And my English was very limited. Of course, I did not actually felt like I didn't speak any English. But just even trying to make that cross-cultural relationship with someone that was sort of similar, but we were the same age, and trying to find ways to communicate, that was just an amazing experience. And so we created these relationships that sort of were fortifying throughout the years, and just make that connection. And so eventually I ended up being here, having an opportunity to come and visit in Nashville in 1998, and kind of experience how the church worked here, maybe a little different, not only because of resources, but how ingrained religion and faith is involved in the culture here, specifically here in Nashville or in Middle Tennessee. That was just a great experience for me.
So they came and visited your church. You came up and visited Nashville, and then you decided you want to make the move to the United States and be a pastor.
Well, actually, the idea, this journey began by me really loving being in the mission field in Mexico. And for the next couple years, what I did is I started volunteering to help in other mission trips, and kind of got to travel around the country, learning with many other churches. And one of the things that happened is opportunity came for me to start getting more involved in organizing part of these mission trips. And I was going to come here to Nashville with the idea of promoting opportunities for mission, and something just that ended up falling through. And what I call today my American family opened their doors to say, hey, just come on down and spend some time with us. And And I had not an intention to be a pastor, just like I was called to serve in the church, but ended up that opportunity started to open. And then one day I just got a call to say, hey, would you like to pastor this congregation that we really need to? And it was a tough choice, but a decision to actually, but it brought me to where we are right now. So
absolutely. I'm fascinated by, we have to go to break, but I'm going to ask this question. I'm reading this article, and it said you noticed when people would visit you in Mexico, I guess the Americans, they didn't seem fanatical with their faith. Yeah. Is that right? And what do you mean by that?
Well, I feel like for me, my experience is like, I felt like it was they were there to express a genuine, faith by not necessarily trying to mold our theological understanding, but by actually sharing with their time, their effort, in their relationships, that even the willingness to eat our food, the willingness to even try things that maybe they would not be accustomed, but also not trying to see us as lower, I don't know how to explain that, but not like a different class human, but to really see us at the same eye level. To me, that was something that it removed a lot of preconceived notions of what Americans would be in a foreign land, and it's just with all due respect, I say it. But I feel like that was an interesting spiritual experience that I just had.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, and then I want to come back and ask about your ministry there in Woodbine, how Woodbine has changed and what you're trying to do. So we'll take a break. Be back right after this.